Hi everybody, this is Greg Sadetsky. I'm a teacher of the Python Fundamentals and Pro Django courses at NewCircle. And today we'll do a short sample demonstration. We'll go through one chapter very rapidly, much more rapidly than in real life if we were doing this online course. We'll just go through, I'll show you a little bit what an online class looks like. And hopefully you'll see that it's very fun and engaging. So today we'll be looking at Chapter 12 of the Python Fundamentals course. You'll see I expanded here the sidebar, and you can actually look at the different chapters of the Python Fundamentals course. So there's a lot of very interesting things. We obviously start with basic variables, types, and things like that. But once we get into the sort of interesting components that Python allows you to work with or play with, well, then we get into really interesting things. So regular expressions is one very interesting subject. Personally, one of my favorite subjects. So I'm really glad that we explore that in the course. So let me just close that sidebar. So regular expressions, it is a bit of a big subject. It takes a little bit of time to master, although it's extremely useful. I would imagine that any developer has either heard about it, knows this all by heart, or you should be really interested in this. It's quite a subject. Extremely briefly, regular expressions allow you to do to search through text or search and replace through text, but in a smart fashion, if we could say. So smart in the sense that you don't have to exactly tell the computer or program the computer to search for some very, very specific letters. So it doesn't have to be a word. It could be a word followed by some characters, or some characters a certain number of times, let's say the letter A 3 times in a row, or a typical example would be white space, and maybe there's some spaces or tabs, and you don't know, either one, and it may be the tab character may be 3 times repeated or 4 times repeated, and you're looking for these blocks of text that are kind of variable and dynamic. Doing this with basic find and replace or find functionality would be very annoying. You'd have to look at, I'm looking for a tab, okay, if I see a tab, I'm looking for another tab, and it gets very messy. Regular expressions are a great way, a very concise way of expressing what you're looking for in searching, and also actually you can replace these sort of dynamic things that you find and replace them with other bits. So let's look at this chapter. Again, this is a brief introduction in an online class. We take a lot of time together to go through, and obviously it's very interactive, so we talk and there's questions going back and forth. But you'll get an idea. So the chapter itself doesn't go into the syntax of regular expressions. There is a lot of content on this subject on the internet. There are even websites where you can practice your regular expressions your knowledge, or learn more about it. But basically, let's assume that you have an idea of what regular expressions are. And if you don't, you can just think of regular expressions again as you're just searching for strings or sort of like magical strings. But let's just say that you're looking for some strings. So just as in a search, you have a big chunk of text and you're looking for a small chunk of text. So the needle and haystack analogy. So in Python, there is a module. So in the course, we'll see, of course, a lot of modules. This is a built-in module. So if you have Python, you should have access to this module. Should, as in you have access to this module, absolutely. And the module name is very short. It's just RE for regular expressions. So if I go into my terminal, which is also always useful to just try out some things, let me import the module. There you go, no errors. That means that it's there. I can just type the module name and see that it was really imported. And the module exports or gives you access to a few methods. We'll be just looking at the very basic search method. So if we're looking at the documentation, you can always Google Python and regular expressions, and the documentation will go through the syntax. So let's just go see what search does. So search takes two basic arguments, and it's the pattern. So this is what you're looking for. This is the needle, and the string is the whole data set. So the whole string that you're looking to, in which to find this needle. So that's the haystack. And we see that the match or the search methods, they return a regular expressions object, as you can see here. So it's not an object that you can just, regular expression won't say, yes, I found it or I didn't find it. It'll just return this object. And if you want to look into this object, there are other methods. But we can actually just very basically, let's just keep this extremely simple. Let's just look at, is a string or an expression, a regular expression, present in a certain data set. So this is extremely basic. Let's just do re.search, and my pattern will be the letter A. So in the string, just this one single letter. And let's say, type in sentence. So, so this should not work. So as you probably remember, in the console, in the interactive console, if there is no result, or you see there's sort of like an emptiness between those two lines, this is because the result is none. It's a bit hard to see when typing like this. It's not clear, has the previous method returned anything or not, but we can obviously just test this and just type in research is none. So that's kind of a question that you're asking. And yeah, Python is saying, yeah, this is true. So it is actually none. So the search method is returning nothing because the A pattern, or just the A string, is not present very obviously, as we can see in sentence. If we had searched for E, the letter E, let's just remove this none, then yeah, we do get an object back. So just testing for the presence or the absence of this object is already, it's already some useful information. We can it already indicates to us if it's present or not. It's kind of a Boolean, interesting information. So this is the super absolute most basic way of, but it's enough to do a regular expression search. Sometimes you do just want to know if something is there or not. You don't need more information like where it's located. You don't want to replace. You just want to know yes or no, is it there? So that's kind of enough to get us started. During this course, we have access to some labs, and the chapter on regular expressions is just like other chapters. It has a lab. Just as it says right there in the chapter, we will be looking at a file called complexity1fileutil.py, and this file is available from the different lab files, which are available through your personal space on the NewCircle website. So I'll go ahead and download this file as a zip. I will take this and I will put this on my desktop, and there you go. So I got the file. Let me open that. Yes, in Text Wrangler. So this is what the file looks like. Now again, during the course this is all explained, but very briefly, we use doc tests during the course, and doc tests are very useful learning tools. It's a very useful learning tool. It's much more than a learning tool, but we use it as a useful learning tool. And the way that it works is that at the top of the file, so this is the lab file. Let me just move myself into the corner. So at the top of the file, you see that there's a huge comment, and this is all commented out because of the three double quotes. So this is inert code. We could just write anything. It would work. But this is actually it's interesting because on one hand, it's this big string that's inert, not doing anything. On the other hand, inside of the string, in the doc test, you see command prompts. And actually, there is some code already written there that looks like Python, and it is Python. And you see here that in this command prompt that somebody wrote, there are some function calls. So grep, what's grep? And there's actually some output. So, oops, sorry. So there is actually some output just right here. So somebody called grep in a command line, and then well, probably Python printed out the result of this method. So what's happening? What is this doc test? What is this all about? Well, it's a very useful way, a doc test, of testing for a behavior of which, so you're supposing that this behavior will happen exactly the way that you're describing it. So it's interesting. It's live code that's inert, but the idea is you as a developer, you want it so that when you call grep like this with these arguments, you want the output to be this. That's your goal. Okay, so that's kind of the block of code. This is how it should happen. And at the bottom of the file, well, this file doesn't do much. It only calls doc test, and it just says, go ahead, doc test, just do your magic. So actually, if we run this file, so it has these, actually these two lines will be the only lines, or the three with the if will be called. So if I call this file, bunch of errors appear. What are those errors? What's happening? Well, actually, doc test, just as we saw, Python went into this inert code and read it, and it tried to recreate these same steps. So it also did an import of string IO. It also declared input data, which is equal to this string IO object, which was instantiated with this content, with this huge string. And then, as you can read in the doc test, it called grep. So this is the regular expression function that we have to write. This is the lab. This is what we'll be doing together. So the lab expects you, the students, with my help, to write this function, grep, and this function should return the exact same content as printed here. So during the lab, you don't change this part. This you leave. This is kind of the question, if we could say that. What's important is that here in this code, or here, we'll be declaring new things and we'll be writing code together. And our goal is that when Python runs our code, the output of the code that we'll write, or you'll write as students, is the exact same as in the doc test. So let's look at what's happening again, just in the console. So we can kind of look at this. We'll see there's a bunch of asterisks, so it's kind of easy to just look at one specific case. So you see here there's an error, which is kind of interesting. It's useful to start usually from the bottom when there's a big trace back of an error. So at the very bottom of this asterisk bound block, you see name error, name grep is not defined. And you see, so going a little bit up, that it tried to call grep input data with the HTTP string. So going through the code, grep input data HTTP, we see that this is the line that Python tried to call, and we haven't declared any function called grep. So Python just stopped there. It said, I can't call grep, it doesn't exist. What is this crazy notion of a grep function? So let's just stub out, let's just begin to define, to do this lab together, and let's just create the grep function. So let's define a grep function. Let's even suppose that we have no clue of what grep will be getting into its argument as argument. So let's just do as grep, as if grep, wasn't able to receive any argument, and let's just actually do an empty function that doesn't do anything. It so passes like nothing. Grep is the most inert function you could have. Let's try running the duck test again. And you see at the very bottom of the duck test, it says 5 failures. And we can actually see that, so there's 5 errors. And this is actually the number of times that grep is called in the duck test. But basically there are 5 mistakes, at least 5 mistakes you have to solve. So let's run this code again. File util. Okay, so let's just go up a little bit. So here's where I called file util again. And again, there's a bunch of mistakes and a bunch of asterisks, but that's okay. We'll just go calmly through this, one problem at a time. Now you see here, now there's a new error. Grep takes no arguments, while 2 arguments were given. So that's interesting. And so you see, we're already progressing. So the grep function exists. Python was able to call it, only, as you already know, when declaring a function in Python, the number of arguments must match. There are ways around this, but basic idea is this. So we can continue on answering error by error and solving our problems. We can also look at the code and to see what it does. So you see here that we declare a string IO object. And a string IO object is an interesting, it's a file-like string. So it's as if you were creating a file sort of in mid-air, and you were creating this object that exactly as a file object that it's returned when you call the built-in open function, you usually read or write or seek from a file-like object. Well, string IO is a quick way to create a file-like object without having to have a file. So you can just declare here, right here, what this virtual file will contain. So as you see, we create this file, virtual file, with this content, which for those that are used to working with web servers, you'll see that this is actually a log of web accesses. So this is like a typical Apache access log. So it just says that a browser connected, and then it went to the /URL, and then it went to /printers, etc. So this is a log, just as we're reading an Apache access log, and we're just assigning this to the input data variable. And you see that grep, we just understanding, kind of reverse engineering this code, this lab, is that grep takes 2 arguments, so input data, which is the haystack, and the second argument is just the needle. So it's taking HTTP, so that's the string that we're probably looking for. And of course, you can see that HTTP repeats quite a few times. So 2, 3 times. So it repeats, actually it repeats much more than that because it repeats right here. So it repeats just a bunch of times. And you see that grep returns a list. So these are the square brackets, and the other square bracket is just right here. So this is closing in square bracket, this is opening square bracket. And in between, we see that these are the individual lines. So you see that this is one line, and this is another line, and this is another line. And grep is returning these individual lines. So I can already start thinking about this. So grep takes in a file-like object. That's one piece of information. The second thing is that it probably splits the content it splits them on lines, because as you remember, and we talked about it in the course, we talked about this, but a new line is just a character, just like a new space or a tab. So it will split on those, create separate lines, probably in a list, and then we'll go through using the regular expressions, the regular expression that we're passing to grep, in this case HTTP, and see for which line there is an HTTP, and then it will return those lines. And for those lines where there's no HTTP, well, it won't do anything. And that's really what grep does. So we hear one use of grep here, and then we see another use of grep, and then it continues on, and we can actually, we're adding more and more things. We're adding actually an inverse option, and so forth. So hopefully this is gives you a small and appealing preview of what the online course looks like. Obviously, we take more time to go through the material, and it's interactive because we all get to talk and to ask questions of one another, and of course I'm here to answer a lot of questions. So so hopefully I will see you soon in a Python or a Django class, and have a great day.